So we recently got that massive gameplay deep dive for Ghost of Yōtei, which clued us in on a lot of the game's mechanics and features. It looks insane, but the developers have a few more details on the game's mechanics that help better explain how exactly they're going to work. So we're going to check that out in today's video. So this interview comes to us from Kyle Hilliard of Game Informer. First off, welcome back, Game Informer. I grew up reading those magazines as a kid, and when they shut down a while back, it was a big loss for the industry. They put out some really great content, but now they're back doing some really great interviews. I can't wait for their inevitable coverage of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3. But either way, they got to sit down with two of the game's co-creative directors, Nate Fox and Jason Connell, to flesh out more of Yotei's mechanics and better explain some of the stuff we saw in that state of play. So the first question they ask is, why set the sequel so far after Tsushima, which is close to 300 years later? In summary, Nate Fox would say that they picked that time period in particular because of how interesting it was. This is after the Warring States period has just ended, there's peace across the land, and you now have all of these warriors who no longer have jobs or a place to stay, so they all end up congregating in Ezo, which is now modern-day Hokkaido. So you've got all of these warriors, there's some lawlessness there, people need something to do, maybe there's a bounty on somebody's head. How do you make a living? On top of that, the landscape of that specific area and time period is just really naturally beautiful, which fits with the Ghost franchise. These games are gorgeous, the landscapes are incredible, but the story, again, is very impactful. It has a purpose. It's not just, this is what we're going to do. It's like it's intrinsically tied to the world that you're navigating, which I think will make things more exciting for Atsu and as a player, because now it's not just, oh, the Mongols are the enemies or bandits are enemies. Anyone around you could feasibly want to go after you if the price is right. Up next, they ask Nate, what about Jin Sakai? Are there going to be any narrative ties to Jin in Ghost of Yōtei? Nate would go on to say, this game is very much its own story. It is a spiritual sequel. You don't need to have played Tsushima to jump right into Yotei. It is a game where the player is considered something of a ghost. Atsu is considered an Onryo, an avenging spirit by the people of Ezo, because she keeps living through all of these attempts to get revenge, and she becomes a walking legend in the land that she explores. Her reputation precedes her. In this way, it's similar, but it's very much its own story. Now, that's one of the things I actually really appreciate about the state of play, is that as Atsu builds up her legend, it's not just a cosmetic thing or like a loosely tied to the story kind of mechanic as it was in Tsushima. As Jin built his legend, there were some rumblings here and there, but it wasn't like it had a reverberating effect around the world. But in Yotei, it will, because again, Atsu is in this land with other warriors. The more she does all of these incredible feats, the more she seems unkillable. That legend grows and eventually looks to impact the story and the world building and the situations that Atsu might potentially be in. So it's going to be really cool to see all of the feats you pull off in the game, how it will affect the world around you in terms of gameplay, the people you meet, the world building. I'm super excited. What I will say, I love Jin. I know all of us do. I know there are people who are upset that the sequel doesn't feature Jin and continue his story. Realistically, his story is finished. Now, of course, you could, do a sequel with Jin, because as we know in history, the Mongols do return. So you could have Jin come out of retirement, but it would be kind of like the same story done over again. But needless to say, the way they ended Jin's story feels like you can stop there. He did what he needed to do, he saved his island, and he left a massive impact. Now, what I will say is that I do hope that there is some sort of tribute or homage to the character of Jin within the world of Yotei, like maybe a sword kit or an armor set, or maybe there's a specific section of Yotei, maybe like a tomb or some sort of shrine that pays tribute to the ghost that came 300 something years earlier. I think that'd be pretty cool. But either way, I'm really excited to see Atsu. She looks super cool. I'm very intrigued by her story. And again, I know for a lot of people, they look at Atsu's story and they think, well, it just seems like a straightforward revenge tale. I don't think it's going to be that simple. I think there's going to be a lot more going on with Atsu and her family, but specifically the Yotei Six. Why did they target Atsu and her family? Is there more going on there? Is it just a simple situation of we're bad guys and we do bad things, so we went after your family? Or is there more brewing underneath that? But I'm really excited to kind of peel back the layers of that story, those characters, to figure out what the heck is actually going on. Now here's a really cool fact. It turns out the wolf that we see in the trailer was based off of an actual species of wolf that lived in Ezo in that period of time. They are called the Ezo wolf, and unfortunately they are now extinct. But these massive creatures did actually roam those lands many, many years ago. So for the Sucker Punch team to kind of pay tribute to those wolves and bring them back in some form and kind of permanently encapsulate them in a piece of history, I think is super cool. On top of that, it's a wolf, man. It looks so cool. They're gonna be on our journey with us. They're gonna be ripping throats. It's gonna be so much fun. Now, this next part here is very important because myself and many other people were under the impression that, oh, this is an open world game where you can target any one of the Yotei Six whenever you want. Turns out it isn't quite that. It is a little bit more structured, which does make sense. So the developers go on to say, so to be clear, it's not that. It's not that you can pick any order of the six, and I'll tell you why. Nate and I in the studio, and we've played a lot of our games, we really believe in the structure of story. It's really important to us that we develop great characters with good arcs with beginning, middles, and ends. You gotta have that, right? That is true, there is an arc with a structure in place, but at the same time, one of the aspects of Tsushima that we wanted to not only carry forward, but just do an even better job of, was that sense of curiosity and freedom of exploration that the game delivers upon. And so you have this delicate impasse of, if the story's just perfectly linear and you are just forced on the gold path all the time, you might lose that opportunity for people who just want to explore the landscapes. But if you go too far on the other side, you might lose the structure of the story. So the balance, without giving away all the details, is there is a structure there, a very important structure. But the way it's presented in the first few hours of the game, especially that first section, it is really about us delivering to you which aspects of the Yotei Six you want to go after first. There are some options that might lead you in some interesting areas. So there is going to be structure there is going to be linearity, and I get what they're saying about balance. You don't want to just go off into one area which could be close to an end game situation and then you got to go all the way back. It's kind of weird. But based on the way they're explaining it, it kind of maybe to me, and I could be wrong here, this is just me throwing stuff at the wall, I think this might be an act by act situation. So maybe in the first act of the game, there could be, let's say, 2 members of the Yotei Six that are available to go after, but maybe you can choose which one you want to go after first, which leads you to specific areas and different enemies that you can interrogate and find information for. I think that might be how it works, instead of what we initially thought of, all of the members are going to be available from the get-go. Pick who you want to go after. Because you don't want to jumble up that story and make it confusing for players to get through. And again, when you're crafting that story, you need everything in its proper place. So that makes sense, but you won't be specifically locked out of a single part of the maps. Let's say you go after one guy who's in a snowy area. You can leave that area if you want. You'll be able to head back to some other zone if you want. The devs do say that. Now, one of the cool features in Tsushima was the ability to use the wind to tell you where you go. Is that still in Yotei? And if it is, how are they changing it up? So Jason Connell would go on to say that in Tsushima, it was very straightforward and simple. If you had a location, you swiped up on the controller, the wind would show you where to go, but it would be a direct path, a direct line of sight to that location, not taking into consideration some of the obstacles that might be in your path. So it could be kind of confusing to navigate some areas in that game because it's like, okay, the wind is telling me where to go, but there's a huge mountain in my way. Which way around this mountain do I need to go? Is there some sort of, big body of water that's going to be blocking me? So it was a little bit messy at times. So for Yotei, they took all of that stuff into consideration. So now when you use the wind, it will give you a more accurate direction of where you need to go. So if there's a mountain in your way, that wind isn't just going to go through the mountain. It's going to go up or around the mountain to show you a path that you can take to get to your destination, which I very much appreciate. It really streamlines the navigation and just makes it less cumbersome to actually traverse the world, which I really appreciate. And of course, Atsu will get to play music much like Jin had his flute. Atsu will have the shamisen, which she can play songs at any given time. And we do see some of that in the state of play where Atsu's at a campfire just playing some tunes. It looks really fun. But I appreciate that they're not going to overclutter the map. That's one of the things I loved about Tsushima, is that it was very minimal in terms of its UI. If you wanted to use the map, that was still very clean and minimal. You could literally navigate those lands without opening up the map. You could just look where you wanted to go and the wind would take you there. It's really nice. Now here's one thing I've been very, very curious about. We can befriend a wolf, but can we befriend other creatures? So Nate Fox goes on to say, the wolf shadows you throughout your adventure. It's a wild animal. It's definitely not a dog that comes when called. It's an ally that is a representation of the wilderness. Now Atsu is kind of attuned to the natural world, and so there are a great variety of different animals in Ezo that she can kind of get close to and interact with. Like a big herd of wild horses you can ride inside of and kind of speed up as you're amongst them all. It's a great thing for the player to discover as they're out exploring Ezo itself. But as far as allies go, the wolf is your prime animal ally, which I love. This is going to be such a good boy. I'm going to be so excited to have this wolf travel with us, show up when we need them, engage in combat. Interestingly enough, there are some photos in the state of play where Atsu is with a bear, but I don't think we're going to be able to befriend the bear. Maybe it'll be a situation where the bears just won't outright attack us like they did in Tsushima, so maybe we can get kind of close, have some sort of Disney princess moment. I don't know. But based on the way the mechanics of the wolf work, it literally looks like it's going to be ingrained in the world. It won't be a situation where you press a button and then it just comes running in. It will always be there to some degree. So I think it'll feel way more organic, which is nice. Now, there's been some speculation, and I've even gotten comments on my TikTok about this, but there are some people out there that think the wolf might be a reincarnated Jin Sakai. And Jason Connell just goes on to say, I love our fans. He laughs and says they're so creative. I love it. I think that's kind of funny. I wouldn't mind if that's the case. It'd be kind of cool if Jin is reincarnated into that wolf and he's like, Atsu, I've been in your shoes before. This is not easy. I'm going to help you out. Yeah, I'm in a wolf body, but we're going to do some damage together. I don't think it's that, but that'd be kind of like a fun little homage to Jin, but it just shows you how creative people are and also how much people really love Jin Sakai. A lot of people connected with that character. I loved his journey in Tsushima, of learning to find a balance between samurai and thief, but eventually being like, look, I gotta do what I gotta do to save my home, even if that means abandoning my honor. There's that really great line between him and his uncle where his uncle says something along the lines of, you have no honor, and Jin replies very quickly, and you are a slave to it. Great writing, I love that. But I don't know if Jin's the wolf. Maybe, we'll find out. So it's really just about building upon the foundation and mechanics that Tsushima laid, polishing them up, making them deeper, streamlining them in all the right ways, and just making the experience of going through that world, upgrading your character, your weapons, getting into battles, navigation, player freedom, that much better. So I cannot wait. I've been waiting for this follow-up since I finished the end of Tsushima and then finished the Iki Island DLC. I just cannot wait. I think this game is going to be really incredible. Probably going to be a contender for Game of the Year for me personally. It's going to come down to that and Clair Obscur. But I just love what they're doing with Yotei. They're making all the right upgrades to make this a much better, more polished experience. And much like I said in my State of Play breakdown video, it's like a Final Fantasy VII Remake to Rebirth situation where you play Remake, it's wonderful, and then you play Rebirth and it's like, oh, they really busted open this game's mechanics, and now Remake feels much more like a beta compared to Rebirth, and Rebirth is what they really wanted to do. I think that's going to be the case with Tsushima and Yotei. It's just really nice to see, and they're just kind of hitting all the right notes for me. So with that being said, that's the video. That was the interview. Let me know in the comments down below, how excited are you for Ghost of Yōtei? And do you like the changes they're making, all of the streamlining they're doing to make it a more pleasurable experience? Let me know in those comments down below. I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.